Hello everybody, and yeah, call me Nostradamus please, because I just accurately predicted that double Ferrari podium. I'll insert my little TikTok here where I literally use the words double Ferrari podium. So yeah, really excited about that. In my video on YouTube, which I posted up here, I talked about my intuition was just screaming at me that Charles was going to do amazing. He won, so congrats to him. His chart looked really nice. I talked about Venus conjunct his MC in the 10th house of Crow, which is always lovely, Jupiter present, but it was really that Venus exact trine to his natal moon, which is like working harmoniously with the team. Everything sort of falls into place for him. Yeah, I just felt it in my heart, even though he'd had a couple of poor weeks, which I'd also talked about. I just felt that he was going to have a really good week, even though this is kind of a bogey track for him. He doesn't normally do that well around Silverstone, but yeah, I just felt it. So I think I really have to listen to my intuition. And someone had commented saying that I maybe use a bit too much logic sometimes. So I think they're right. Maybe I just need to go with what I feel when I look at the chart and think this is going to be it. Yeah, I really loved his chart. Second thing is Lewis also got a podium, which is amazing. I did say that I think he would at very least get a podium, but of course the problem I think he's having is that square. Now squares can be really good for victory if applied correctly, but if there's things going on, like for example the Mercury retrograde very close to his natal moon, I think that can also be difficult. But he also had the sun conjunct that moon as well, which again is still like podium worthy, but just not ultimately as victorious as something like Barcelona, for example, but still sentimental to have a podium in your home race. So I think that's amazing. So my biggest thing was that I just felt in my bones there was going to be a double Ferrari podium, which there was, so that was accurately predicted. The next thing I want to talk about is Kimi Antonelli. And again, I said about taking his chart with a pinch of salt, but I think I also in my video isolated the issue. So I mentioned that I think he would do really well this weekend, which he did because he won the sprint race and also got pole position. So yes, he did very well. The reason why he did not do well in the race is, if you caught it when I said in the last video, was that I said that the moon was going to be conjunct his natal Uranus, which is a sudden event or something kind of shocking or weird I mentioned. I thought it was going to be in qualifying actually, but turns out it was actually in the race. Now he had a multitude of issues. We thought it was the suspension, and then it wasn't. It was the front wing, and there was a rib, something got going on the tyre. I can't quite remember. I was sort of in the zone with it. But he was not able to be on the podium or even finish close. So yeah, he has moon in Pisces, a transit, and that is conjunct natal Uranus in the 5th house. What also that is doing is exactly opposite natal Virgo moon in the 11th as well, which is a real struggle. And again, whenever we see something interacting with Uranus, it's going to be sudden volatility. So I absolutely have isolated that issue. However, I do think that Venus conjunct Mercury was really good for the pole position yesterday, which is still present. It's just that unfortunately, I've always said Uranus is one of those planets that can really just counteract those good things. Hence why I was like, Mercury square Mercury, not too bothered about that for Charles, because I see too much harmony. Whereas this, I was like, yes, again, I think I'm using my logic too much. I think my intuition was telling me that something sudden was going to happen, and that's why I mentioned, well, I think it could be qualifying, but actually it was in the race, so I was a little bit off on my timing. I think sometimes I have a feeling and then I don't quite get the time slot correct. So I think, again, it's always looking at data and seeing what works, what doesn't. This square to Lewis's ascendant is struggling at the moment. He's not doing poorly, but he's not victorious, is he? Whereas with Charles, I'm like, okay, we can see those 10th house trines, really lovely. And anytime there is a square or a trine to his natal moon, it's quite dramatic. So I'm really looking at aspects of his moon now. And again, this is just for fun. We're looking at data and seeing what's happening. One thing I also want to look at is Max had another crash. I said that his chart was very similar to last week, and I was like, it's kind of neutral, but also he had a crash, didn't he, in qualifying. So I really wanted to sort of isolate what is causing this crash. So I've just pulled up his chart, And again, first thing I'm going to look at is what is going on with the transit Uranus, like what's happening, and is there anything that's particularly volatile with that. So one thing I noticed pretty dramatically, and this is definitely going to have applied last week, is that Uranus is exactly opposite his natal Pluto in Sagittarius. So we're talking about a planet of volatility that also rules engineering, exactly opposite transformation, struggle, destruction, and again in your first house of identity and also other people. So I mean, he was really angry on the radio. He was like, you know, really annoyed about it. But of course, it's very, very close to being opposite, like pretty much 2 degrees opposite his natal Mars in Sagittarius. I have a Mars in Sagittarius, so I understand his temper, like I get it. But Mars also rules mechanical parts as well. So that's when you just spin out, something doesn't feel quite right, or you're doing too much. And of course, last time I was like, oh, Jupiter opposite Venus was going to do that, but then I think the Uranus opposite Pluto and Mars is causing a problem. Now we need to keep a track of that because these are very slow moving transits, and if that is the case, then we're going to have a problem on our hands with him continuously doing this or having problems with that car for sure, because it's not happening to Isaac. So there is an interesting thing to look at. And again, that's why you have to look at transits and say what's working for one person and what is not working for another. I am freaking happy as hell that I predicted correctly the double Ferrari podium, and my goat is second. George got second. Though I was so, like, the one time, because I went to the sprint race and qualifying, the one time I don't go to the race, he freaking wins. I was going to take that cap and smack someone around it, because everyone's like, who's actually a George Russell fan? I'd be like, shut your mouth. Because I'm like, oh my God. And also, of course, that pushes him up into the standings. Now, this is really intriguing because a lot of you who watch my F1 videos will watch my Destiny Matrix video. Now, what's really fun is that next month, Kimi Antonelli's destiny is going to change. So he's going to go from the world to a very similar energy to what Oscar Piastri was in last year, which is why I've been like not worried, because I think things can change really quickly. And of course, Lewis Hamilton in that 15 energy that he was in when he won his first championship, absolutely chasing it down. That's why I'm saying this title fight is far from over. I'm excited to kind of view it. I'm starting to think Kimi's chart is accurate because of the way we're tracking it. But again, what I do is I kind of pinpoint certain transits and say, this is really good for victory, not so much. This causes volatility. And again, I have a whole big handbook where I isolate different degrees, placements, transits that really contribute to engineering. Now, there are various parts of F1 that correlate to certain planets. And this is why you have to really have an understanding of astrology, and for me, also F1. Right? Because anyone could say, oh yeah, this looks really nice for a good day, but how do you apply that to strategy and how do you apply that to engineering? I have a strategy PhD, I don't have an engineering PhD, but I'm pretty good at sort of knowing how things work, and I'm pretty good at seemingly predicting the emotions of the drivers. But yeah, there are things I get wrong, of course. Like I said, there are always things I get wrong, or I'm like, oh, again, I think I'm off with the timing sometimes. Or I will say that, yes, this person's going to do well, but it's hard to predict who's going to win when you don't have all the charts. Freaking love George's chart. Someone from Mercedes, just get him to be like, call your mum up and get your birth time, please. Because then that could be really fun. Then we've got the whole lineup. But yeah, I just wanted to make an update video because I was A, excited about it, and B, I was intrigued about Kimi's problem, which I think I've isolated down to being that moon conjunct Uranus opposite natal moon. It's causing volatility. And it was interesting because when I watched qualifying, I was like, he didn't have a problem. Strange, my prediction's off. And then it was in the race. So again, the reason why I felt it was a bit off is because the moon, just get Kimi's chart up again. The moon's moved on a little bit. So I will So the moon, as of the close of race, is 17 degrees and his natal Uranus is 13 degrees. But if I move that back like to yesterday, the moon's at 4 degrees, so too far away. So I was like, it's kind of like a bit odd. So really the sweet spot of it being exactly conjunct would have been let's look at the timing, around 9 o'clock in the morning. That would have been an exact conjunction. Now, exact conjunctions are more powerful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that works. The reason why I believe this has been more volatile is because the moon's at 17 degrees, then it is 3 degrees opposite his natal moon. So for example, at say 4 degrees or even 10, it's too far away from the natal moon. So the closer it gets to a natal placement is more dramatic in astrology. So I think that's what's caused the problem. Again, I don't know, but I'm going to track it, because again, it's in the 5th house as well. So it kind of feels very sort of like, what? He talked about, I'm going to finish it, I'm going to try and gamble with it. It's very 5th house themes. So yeah, I think that's quite fascinating. Yeah, I'm happy. 2 British drivers on the podium as a British person is awesome. And super happy for Charles. And again, I just knew my intuition, he was going to do really well. I felt it in my bones. And then I posted that TikTok and I was very confident. I was like, double Ferrari podium, which these days is a bit of a cocky thing to say, because like, what? Yeah, all right. But as Lewis said, 2 wins this year, they're doing really well. And they got the pace. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to track it. But excited and happy, and then we'll see what happens for the next race. Now, one thing I will say is I think everything is going to change with Zandvoort, with Netherlands. I think that's absolutely going to change the trajectory. A lot of drivers have their birthdays around late August to September when Destiny Matrix switches, and again, the drivers that stay in their energy is Lewis and George, so it'll be interesting to see how they battle that out, because of course someone like Oscar Piastri, he changed his fate pretty dramatically halfway through the season. So we'll see. Yeah, thank you for watching, everybody. It's really nice. I know a lot of you are really getting into this, like, tell me if they're going to win. And again, sometimes it's quite hard. Like, I am not I mean, I'd love to be the F1 astrologer, that'd be awesome, but I am not the F1 astrologer, so I can't always get it right. But sometimes I just have a feeling, and then like I did with Lewis's win in Barcelona, I just had a feeling, and then with this one with Charles, like, I have a feeling. I don't care if people are going to say I'm crazy, but I just have it, and then he wins. I thought he might even just get a podium, but a win, like, what the fuck? So yeah, excited about that, and yeah, I'll see you for the next video.